and energy prices will continue to rise, because net zero is the biggest lie ever, in my mind, ever thrown at the British people. That is definitely opinion of our next guest, Ross Clark, columnist from The Sun, of course, and author of Not Zero. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy.
You're looking the part there, and you're very smart, sir. Check shirt and braces, lovely. Good to have you on, sir. Not Zero is great. I actually genuinely have read a bit about it. I wanted to ask you something. Today's quite interesting. Even Tony Blair's turned on Miliband and Starmer today and said, this is madness given the financial sacrifices and changes and challenges to people's lifestyles that you're talking about when you consider how small an impact it will have globally. And Ross, I wanted to start with something that Mike Graham said on Morning Glory the other day when, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say it happens and Miliband's right and we get to 2050 and we've achieved our target. What the hell happens next?
What would happen then? Well, if Britain got to the target, the rest of the world probably wouldn't. Well, we would have destroyed our industry. The rest of the world would be profiting at our expense, and we would have sacrificed ourselves for nothing. I mean, that's what the government policy is leading to at the moment. But Tony Blair has quite rightly said it's doomed to failure. He's effectively said government policy, and, you know, he's a former Labour Prime Minister. He said the current Labour Prime Minister's policy is doomed to failure.
Strong words. And actually,
a moment of realisation for many people, I'm sure.
Well, interesting when you say, Ross, about realisation. Ed Miliband has made no secret, the Energy Secretary, of this is his life's work. We're going to be... you know, all the farmers are going to have their land grabs. We're going to build wind farms. We all know, anybody who knows anything knows that it's a lie, because not only have energy prices and bills gone up, we have the most expensive energy in Western Europe, but we won't be able to make enough damn electricity with these bloody wind farms, and we'll end up importing it. And of course, when you look across the pond at what America drill, baby, drill, it's that question, isn't it? We all care to a degree, I'm sure, about the environment, but we have this richness and this value under our own land, and we refuse to acknowledge it. Do you think, and a really big question for you, do you think Starmer will come to the realisation that this is massively unpopular, jettison it and get rid of Miliband, or is he wedded to this ideologically himself, do you think, Ross?
Well, I think for many years, governments have sort of relied on opinion polls, which just sort of someone stuffs a clipboard in front of someone's nose, said, do you agree with tackling climate change? And of course, everybody says yes, because it's a virtuous thing to say, and we all want care about the environment and so on. But when you reframe the debate, you actually give people genuine consequences of search for net zero, like, do you want to go without foreign holidays? Do you want higher electricity prices? Do you want to go without meat and so on? Well, people give very, very different answers. They don't want to sacrifice their lifestyles to achieve this arbitrary target. And this is the trouble which Keir Starmer's going to find, the whole government's going to find, is they think that the public is very much on side with net zero, but when it comes to the practicalities, it is a very, very different story.
And that's the point. When you hang your hat on something as huge as this net zero policy, to anybody, and you know far more than me, but to anybody with a brain cell, you look at it and you go, it is not universally popular. It's another example of Great Britain, certainly in my opinion, trying to do the right thing and not understanding that we are not in a position that we were before. And you talked about, you know, people, the financial toll. The British people have been battered, be it COVID, the pandemic, the cost of living. There's all sorts of stuff. You know, if you go to a supermarket now, certainly not M&S because there's nothing on their shelves, but if you go to a supermarket, the cost is astronomical compared to what it was. And yet still, these idiots believe that this is a good idea. And to me, it's very... It's just incredibly short-sighted, and I cannot see a point at which the Labour Party in some way or other is going to have to row back on this, because it doesn't add up financially, it doesn't add up in terms of what the British public want, and the end result is it will simply further bankrupt this country, won't it?
Well, every net zero target that we've had so far has had to be sort of relaxed, whether it's been ban on oil and gas boilers, where there's been ban on petrol and diesel cars and so on. They've all had to be pushed back because the way this policy seems to work is that sort of government thinks, well, we've set a target, and then all the technology that we will require to get to that target will magically come into existence. Not only that, but it will also, even more magically, it'll be cheaper than the technology we use at the moment. And of course, that's stuff and nonsense, really. Miliband keeps this mantra up that electricity prices are so high in this country because we're so reliant on gas. But what he doesn't explain is why are electricity prices in the US about a quarter of what they are here, and the US uses a higher proportion of gas-generated electricity than does Britain. So there's something wrong with Ed Miliband's
mind.
Analysis there, isn't there?
What is the LGA, by the way? You'd know more. They today have said that they should... Local Government Association wants to put solar panels on all new homes to cut bills and carbon. It's not going to cut bills, is it? It's ideology, Ross, isn't it? It's ideology.
Yeah. I'm not actually against putting solar panels on new houses. I mean, that's where they should be, rather than in fields, rather than taking up good quality agricultural land. I mean, if you put some solar panels on your roof, they will reduce your bill because you'll be using the power from the panels rather than the grid. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll come clean. I've got them on my roof, and they work very well for me. But the reason they work so very well for me is because I get paid over 60 pence per kilowatt hour for every unit I generate. That's a very generous feed-in tariff that the government offered a dozen years ago, up to a dozen years ago, whereas I buy electricity in at sort of 30 pence per kilowatt hour. So
you're making money out of it. It's complete hypocrisy, Ross. You're a complete hypocrite, man.
It works. So I think people will do things which work for them financially.
Well, I bought a house and built an extension, and I've taken down the solar panels because I think they look crap. I think that this government genuinely is going to reach a point where it realises and gets its head out of the clouds and understands that the British people, yes, of course, we all care about certain things. But right now, and I keep saying it again and again and again, there are more pressing problems, aren't there? Can I ask you very quickly before you go about the unexpected power outages overnight and yesterday in Spain and Portugal? Many people in the media saying that a reliance on that net zero energy and that as an approach has caused this. What's your thoughts on that, Ross?
Yeah, well, that's the way it seems to be going. That the idea of a cyber attack, that's now been ruled out. Spain and Portugal both are more reliant on wind and solar than we are in Britain. They generate about 50% of their electricity last year from wind and solar. Now, the trouble with wind and solar, apart from the expense, of course, is that it makes the grid far more vulnerable to short-term disturbances. It's always a tricky business, a very complex operation to balance supply and demand in an electricity market. But if you've got gas, you've got coal, you've got nuclear, you're only really having to worry about the demand side, the variations in demand, because you can control the supply. But you've got a lot of wind and solar. You can't control the supply either, because the wind's not always blowing and the sun's not always shining. And there's also a problem with inertia. At the moment, if you have a lot of gas turbines in the system, it keeps the system running, irons out the sort of minor perturbations in demand, if you like.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of wind and solar, on the other hand, you don't have that facility, and it makes the system far more vulnerable.
Couldn't agree more. Great read, by the way, Not Zero. Thank you for joining us. The excellent Ross Clark, columnist from The Sun, of course.